Welcome to Discovery! Roll the intro, please. Welcome back to another episode of Discovery. We are winding down to the end of the year with only a few episodes of Discovery left for 2024. Today we're cleaning up the scraps of the albums that were released on November 22nd, 2024, and also, discovering some albums that were released on November 29th. I told you there would be another episode of Discovery this week. Our main event for this episode is Marilyn Manson's new album, and you'll hear my thoughts on his latest release. The new Opeth album, The Last Will and Testament, which was the main event of last week's Discovery, just keeps getting better and fucking better with every fucking listen. It's an incredible album. In this episode, we have a bit of everything from alternative metal to black metal to death metal. We've got it all this week. So before I start, pop your favorite discoveries down below and let's begin. To kick off this week's Discovery, we're diving into the rap metal band Body Count and their new album Merciless, released November 22nd through Century Media Records. Ice-T and the gang are back with their 8th studio album, which takes aim at politics and corruption. If you're not a fan of rap metal, then you might want to skip this one, but for those who are, Merciless is a pretty fun listen from start to finish. Personally, I enjoyed it, though I did feel a bit uncomfortable at times. Though I did feel a bit uncomfortable at times, I've always liked Body Count. The 2020 album Carnival was pretty solid, but there's something about this new record that felt a bit off, even though it's still good overall. Let's talk about some highlights. The hard-hitting riffs, the melodic hooks, and a special guest appearance such as Corpse Grinder on The Purge. That guitar solo in their rendition of Comfortably Numb is absolutely mouth-watering. There's also the intense Psychopath with its chugging riffs and the brutal, honest lying motherfucker. World War is another track that grows on you after a few listens. At first it felt a bit weak, but it picks up steam. The opening track, Merciless, din, 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 Merciless, with its repetitive and catchy chorus of Merciless, sets the tone for the album. The album blends various styles, including crossover thrash, hardcore punk, rap metal, even new metal, and even a bit of death metal, especially on The Purge, which gets really heavy thanks to Corpse Grinder's brutal vocals. The guitar work is strong throughout, with great solo in Comfortably Numb that at times feels almost uncomfortable to listen to in a good way. Ice-T raps and flows are solid as always, and you can hear his anger and frustration with the world in every line. Overall, Merciless is a good album, but I do have a couple of issues with it. The main complaint is that it lacks a bit of substance in places. There are some generic riffs, and while the production is very clean, I would have preferred a grittier, more raw sound in certain parts. It's a strong album, don't get me wrong, but not an album of the year contender. If I had to rate it, I'd give it a solid 50%. That might sound harsh, but Body Count has made even better albums in the past. Even Carnival felt more refined, so Merciless gets a middle-of-the-road score for me.
You don't even know my name. I'm hired help. I work for you to gain and maintain wealth. But the tables turn. Now I'm on top.
The Swiss black metal band Aara will release their 6th studio album Eiger on December 6th through Deborah Morty Productions. You can also check out the album early on the Black Metal Promotions YouTube channel. Overall, this is another fantastic black metal release for 2024, atmospheric, dark and ambient all at once. I love how heavy this album can get. Aara has yet to release a bad album and has been incredibly consistent since their formation in 2018. Eiger presents a wintry atmosphere with thunderous percussion, blast beats and cymbals high in the mix, creating the feeling of a battle raging on like a clash of swords and blood being spilled. The vocals, of course, are as piercing as ever. They are so high pitched that they almost sound like another instrument within the mix, adding to the overall intensity of the album. Beautiful clean guitar sections are expertly blended with their heaviness, and every track feels necessary and well paced within the album's flow. There are so many great songs on this release. The guitar work is fantastic, the tremolo picking and chaotic riffs are sharp and fucking powerful. This is a very heavy album with double bass drums that are prominent throughout, enhancing the songs and enveloping the listener in a war of fucking sound. I've really enjoyed this one. It's packed with melodies and hooks that will draw you in. At around 55 minutes, the album's intensity feels much shorter. There are beautiful ambient sections, some subtle synths slow in the mix, which add to the overall atmosphere. The vocals are definitely one of the standout elements. The intensity of the shrieks is incredible, sharp, piercing, and full of emotion. While Eiger won't be released until like early December, like till next week, I was fortunate to hear it ahead of its time. It's a fantastic album. I'm giving it a score of around 80%. It's a very good album. It's very good, bordering on great, but it's not quite as groundbreaking as some of the previous works. That said, Aara continues to release consistently excellent albums and to remain one of the best modern black metal bands out there. We're diving headfirst in the realm of power metal with Aeon Gods and their debut album King of Gods, released November 22nd via Scarlet Records. So, how is it? Well, it's fine. That's it, just fine. Sure, some of the guitar work made me raise an eyebrow in mild astonishment, and yes, it's high octane, epic, symphonic, and all those buzzwords that power metal fans, myself included, gobble up like candy. If you're into majestic theatrical bands like Dragony, Visions of Atlantis, Serenity, and Alvin King, there's a good chance you'll find something to enjoy here. The melodies, solid. The guitar solos, mouth-watering. There's repetition aplenty, wars of drums and vocals that hit all the right notes. Now, a funny thing happened while researching Aeon Gods. I initially couldn't find much about them because, oops, I was spelling their name wrong. Pro tip, double check metal archives before assuming a band doesn't exist. So what does King of Gods bring to the table? It's a buffet of power metal staples, flashy solos, melodic hooks, catchy choruses, sweet picking galore, and the obligatory orchestral touches. Highlights include Sun God and the title track King of God, both solid tunes, but the real standouts are the Flood Trilogy, Enlil's Command, Ninth's Lament, and Enki's Race. These tracks show off the band's strongest songwriting with slower emotional moments and some genuinely stirring guitar work. These three, chef's kiss. The rest of the album more like chef's shrug. There's a nice touch of heaviness in Monster of Tiamat, a thrashy romp that adds some welcome grit. Overall production is top notch. It's got that polish we spent all night tweaking the snare vibe that power metal thrives on. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room, originality. Kings of Gods is fun, but it's also about as groundbreaking as a hammer hitting the same nail for the 1,000th fucking time. Shorter songs are energetic and well executed, but we've heard variations of this formula from countless other bands. It doesn't push any fucking boundaries, and the album suffers from a lack of true innovation. The final verdict, a respectable debut but nothing earth-shattering. I'd give King of Gods a 55%. It's a decent first step, but he's hoping their next effort packs more of a punch. Come on, Aeon Gods, show us what you're really made of the next time. Death metal is coming in strong this year, and Carnal Savagery is really making things tough for all the right reasons. The Swedish death metal band dropped their second studio album of 2024, Graveworms, Cadavers, Coffins and Bones, on November 22nd through Monumenty Records. This album is nothing short of fantastic. It brings that old school death metal vibe reminiscent of bands like Sentient Horror, Molder and Skeletal Remains, while carving out its own identity. It's aggressive, but also surprisingly melodic, striking a unique balance between old school death metal and melodic death metal. Songwriting here is simple yet effective, packed with gnarly guitar licks and ripping solos. Vocally, Matthias is a force of nature, delivering gutturals, high-pitched fry shrieks, and soul-piercing screams with the power of a World War II cannon. His voice is distinct and perfect suited for Carnal Savagery style. The production deserves special praise. It's sinister, dark and grimy while maintaining an organic, unpolished quality that makes the album feel alive. The mix ensures the drumming is prominent, the guitars cut through like razors, and every sinister detail hits hard. Standout tracks include Nailed to the Cross, Nailed to the Cross, Carnal Blasphemy, and the melodic Blind, Torture, Kill. The title track slows things down, channeling a Death Doom vibe before launching into Charred Mass of Flesh, which features a blistering solo, one of Matthias's most impressive screams. The riffs on this album are absolutely fucking killer, blending groove and darkness seamlessly. Tracks like Autopsy Alive showcase eerie, atmospheric guitar lines that keep things fresh and compelling. The whole album is a relentless ride from start to finish, and the production adds an atmosphere that makes it even more immersive. Bonus points for the snare tone. It's oddly satisfying. At just 36 minutes, this album is pure headbanging bliss. For me, it's one of the year's standout death metal releases, rivaling Molder's catastrophic reconfiguration. Burnt to Death is another banger with galloping drums, melodic riffs, and a opening scream that sends chills down your fucking spine. Mutilation slows the pace, but remains heavy. While Decapitated wraps things up with a roaring solo, soaring melodies, and more of Matthias's ferocious vocals. I have no hesitation scoring this album an 85%. It's one of the best death metal albums of the year, hands down. A thrilling listen from start to finish. As soon as it ended, I couldn't resist hitting replay. Graveworms, Cadavers, Coffins and Bones is a triumph for Carnal Savagery, and I can't wait to see what they do next. Now let's turn our attention to Poland and the band Czort, which whose new album Monumenty was released on November 29th through Pagan Records. I was truly blown away by Czort when they released Apostle back in 2020, and it has taken them 4 years to create a worthy successor. Monumenty does not disappoint. I generally appreciate their unique take on black metal. The Polish scene is known for its distinct sound, as exemplified by bands like Aara, and Czort fits right into that mold. This new album is rich with intricate riffs and a captivating atmosphere. The vocals are impressive, but as I listened to Monumenty, I couldn't shake the feeling that there's an underlying post-metal edge to this release. The songwriting is commendable, showcasing a style that sets Czort apart from many other black metal acts. They draw you in with an atmosphere laden with dread, where distorted guitars weave through a tapestry of emotion. Clocking in around 45 minutes, Monumenty demonstrates a marked maturity in their songwriting. Each snare hit and guitar chord is delivered with aggression, while the vocals carry a menacing tone that hovers between black and death and traditional traditional black metal. The melodies evoke a deep emotional resonance, transporting you into a dark and desolate world. Overall, I found Monumenty to be a solid album from Czort, but it doesn't quite reach the heights of Apostle, which I consider their magnum opus. While the songwriting in this new release is impressive, I found Apostle to be more sonically pleasing. It feels as though they are trying to harness the same energy from their previous works and give it a fresh twist. Nonetheless, Monumenty still stands strong, with each song hitting differently and offering its own unique experience. In conclusion, I would rate this album around 70%. It's a very good black metal offering, but I believe Czort has the potential to deliver even more in their future endeavors. So 70% it gets. Are you enjoying this mega discovery? Well, we have a whole lot more in store for you. Next up is Gorgon, a French black metal band, and their album For Those Who Stay, released through Osmos Productions. Take a listen. This record is solid from start to finish, showcasing impressive guitar leads and strong songwriting. The vocals are excellent, contributing to the overall black metal excellence of the album. While it may not be my favourite black metal album of the month, I still found it enjoyable. The album cover is striking, instantly drawing me in and making me eager to listen. The band brings an upbeat tempo, delivering fast, high-octane black metal at times. However, I couldn't help but notice a significant heavy metal influence throughout. For Those Who Stay has a distinct black and roll edge that I really appreciated. The opening track is filled with infectious riffs, leading into Next to the Mill, which is an absolute banger. Hypnotic Fire is another standout, while The Art of Dying offers a riff-tastic experience. Shelter is a head-banger's delight, and Troops of the Fallen slows things down before suddenly picking up with Deserters as Prey. The production is well executed for black metal. It may sound a bit polished, but it works for this album. The drums have an organic feel, making it a fun listen from start to finish. Overall, Gorgon throws everything at you on this album, delivering great solos, tremolo picking, and tasty riffs. To be honest, while I appreciate the fun elements of this album, it's not exactly my type of black metal. The black and roll edge and heavy metal influences are enjoyable, but I tend to gravitate towards darker, misanthropic, and moodier black metal. While this album is entertaining, I felt like Gorgon, much like Spider God, lacked some substance, particularly in their songwriting. Nothing really surprised me. I'm leaning towards scoring this album around 60%. It's a good record in its own right, but it could have been better. Yes, there are traditional sounding black metal moments on this, but much of it leans towards that high octane black and thrash. If you enjoyed Opeth's album, The Last Will and Testament, you would likely appreciate the Italian band Bedsore and their album Dreaming the Strife for Love, released on November 29th through $20 Spin. Take a listen. Overall, this album is quite impressive. When I first listened to it, I was unsure of its direction. Imagine a fusion of like Emerson, Lake Palmer, Rush, Opeth, and even King Crimson, even a bit of Tribulation as well. That's what Bedsore sounds like. Honestly, I was taken aback by the complex compositions. After hearing this album several times over the weekend, I remain in awe of its intricacies. It features saxophones, mellotron, outstanding guitar solos, solid riffs, and a tapestry of intricate drum work, including symphonic elements, orchestral moments, all contributing to that rich atmosphere you expect from a progressive death metal album. The vocals lean more towards like a black metal, making this album truly unique. While I believe Opeth's The Last Will and Testament is a superior album, it doesn't quite compare to how experimental and risk-taking Bedsore is on this release. Minerva's Obelisk offers 6 minutes of prog metal, complete with keyboard solos, mellotron, and impressive bass work. Scars of Light picks up the tempo as the vocals are introduced, which are quite good. It honestly reminds me of what it might sound like if Tribulation ventured into progressive death metal, as the vocals bear resemblance to those of Tribulation. You also have the atmospheric magnum opus, a colossus, an elephant, a winged horse, the Dragon Rendezvous. This track is fantastic, filled with captivating leads, intricate bass work, symphonic elements, and various rhythmic patterns that catch you off guard with their shifting fucking time signatures, taking you on a journey into the unknown. Fanfare for a Heartfelt Love is another brilliant track embodying everything you could imagine from prog death, heavy and in your face. The closer, that Fountain of Venus, is very good as well, featuring saxophone, mellotron, and organ. The production is decent, but some sections of the album feel slightly murky. Certain parts could benefit from a heavier sound. It feels less metallic than it could be, and the guitar tone could have been sharper. That said, the layered vocals are well done, and I appreciate the reverb used on them. With great melodies throughout the album, I believe this is a solid release for Bedsore. I'm scoring it an 80%. It's a fantastic way to wrap up November with an album like this. While some may argue that it leans towards heavily into wankery, I disagree. I think this is a tight and cohesive album, so go check it out. The Aussie death metal band Gutless unleashed their debut album High Impact Violence on November 22nd through Misako Un Ojo Records. This is a brutal, bone-crushing album from start to finish. Dark, murky, and unrelenting death metal laced with thunderous percussion, abyssal, guttural vocals, and a pure, unholy devotion to old-school death metal. The moment the first track erupted, I was immediately reminded of early Cannibal Corpse. The chainsaw-like guitars slice through you. Slice through the mix, roaring with the ferocity of flesh being torn from bone. Each riff feels like the jagged edge of a butcher's blade hacking through sinews with a rather reckless abandon. The percussion is relentless, with cymbals that clang like serrated knives being sharpened, preparing to carve into whatever unfortunate victim lies next. This album is soaked in grotesque imagery. Its sonic violence drips through blood and entrails. Bashed and hemorrhage pummel you with an unyielding barrage of chaos, while beyond the catacombs accelerates into a frenzied maelstrom, as if dragging you into the depths of a cursed burial ground. Avalanche of viscera oozes along with a sluggish, crushing weight, each riff's landing on a slab of meat being pulverized. Then there's Gorgon, a pulverizing anthem of flesh-rending terror and viral infection. This track's so vicious, it feels like it's injecting you with a sickness and unrelenting malice spreading like a contagion through your veins. Despite its unrelenting savagery, this album does feel slightly short. It clocks in around about 30 minutes, delivering a blistering assault that leaves you wanting more. However, what it lacks in length, it makes up for sheer intensity. Tom Caldwell's guttural, corpse grinder-esque vocals are monstrous, summoning a sound that feels as if it's erupting from the depths of some unspeakable hell. The production is delightfully primal and murky, evoking the grimy aesthetics of 90s death metal with an authenticity that transports you back to that era of carnage and chaos. Old school death metal is on a thrilling resurgence in 2024, and Gutless proudly adds to this blood-soaked renaissance. Their debut joins the ranks of stellar releases this year, including a masterpiece from Australian legends Aara. While high-impact violence doesn't break new ground, it doesn't need to. It revels in the classic visceral brutality that defines the genre. For fans of no frills death metal that's as raw and ruthless as a butcher's workshop, this album is a must-hear. My verdict: a solid 75%. It's straightforward, gore-soaked, old-school death metal at its finest. If you're in the mood for pure sonic carnage, give this a spin. You won't regret it, though your ears might. And now, our main event for this week's discovery is Marilyn Manson and his new album, One Assassination Under the God, Chapter 1, released through Nuclear Blast on November 22nd. Take a listen. I was pretty pleased with this new release. One Assassination takes a different approach than We Are the Chaos, where Manson seemed to push to sound like David Bowie. On this album, Manson returns to his roots, delivering hard-hitting alternative metal with solid hooks, heavy riffs, and overall fun listening experience. Will this make it onto my albums of the year list? Probably not. It's a harmless album with a strong social commentary message, but not one that stands out as a game changer. The standout tracks for me is Sacrilegious. It's by far the best song on the album. Evil Sacrilegious. Oh my god. The song blends gothic elements with Manson's signature vocals, which are either loved or hated by many, but on this track they work very well. Manson also experiments with synths on songs like Death Is Not a Costume and No Funeral Without Applause. There are heavier tracks than We Are Chaos, such as the chugging riff-heavy title track One Assassination Under God, and As Sick as the Secrets Within. Most of this album carries a darker, more sinister tone than his 2020 release, but there are still traces of We Are Chaos throughout, especially on the final track, Sacrifice of the Mass. It's a fun album overall with a mix of slower paced songs, but Sacrilegious is definitely one of my favourites. It's an absolute banger. Sacrifice of the Mass features one of the best guitar solos on any Marilyn Manson album, filled with soul and emotion. So I'm giving this album around 65%. It's a good release, but not a great one. I've listened to it a few times, and while it's enjoyable, tracks like Meet Me in Purgatory and Raise the Red Flag just don't hit the mark for me. That's why 65% feels fair for a solid, but not exceptional Marilyn Manson album. I really enjoyed We Are Chaos, and think it holds up well against the new album. Both have that mid-2000s Marilyn Manson vibe that I appreciate. To me, this album is most similar to Heaven Upside Down from 2017, which was also a strong effort. But yeah, a 65% it gets. So yeah, that's it for Discovery for this week. Hope you guys did enjoy it. Massive episode this week. Only a few weeks left until we end season 6 of Discovery. We'll return in mid-January. But yeah, next month is list month. That means disappointing albums, the worst albums of the year, including the best albums of the year. So it's a very big month ahead, and you'll certainly see a different background as well. So let me know in the comments below your favorite discoveries, and let me know what you thought about all these albums down below in the comments below. It's been fun, and I'll see you in the next one.